Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. A Kiss Before Coffee unfolds in the heart of a bustling city where the pace of life is quick, and moments to breathe can be as fleeting as the steam rising from a fresh cup of coffee. Amid the clatter of cups and the hum of quiet conversations, our story begins in a small yet popular cafe named the Crimson Bean. Derek Monroe had been managing the Crimson Bean for nearly 5 years. A tall, lean man with an angular face framed by unruly dark hair and eyes as gray as a stormy sea, he carried the air of someone who had been weathered by life more than once. His cynicism about people and love was well known among the staff. Derek believed love was mostly a fairy tale sold in books and movies, a fragile illusion that didn't survive the reality of life's hardships. His coffee was strong, his smiles rare, and his patience worn thin by the endless parade of customers, some expecting casual charm and others just wanting their caffeine fix quickly. Into this carefully constructed world stepped Sophie Lane, a 24-year-old temp who took the part-time job at the Crimson Bean with a heart brimming with hope and a belief so strong in the magic of love that it often made her eyes shine brighter than the early morning sun. Sophie had spent her childhood lost in romantic novels, scribbling poetic notes in the margins of her school notebooks, and dreaming of love stories that could rival those she devoured in books. To Sophie, love was gentle, purposeful, and inevitable. When the previous barista suddenly took a job in another city, Derek, faced with the sudden vacancy and the bustling demand, decided to hire a temporary replacement. The week's temp circulation brought various applicants, but Sophie's nervous smile and determined spirit persuaded him to give her a chance. Perhaps because, despite his wariness, he too was running low on options. On her first day, Sophie arrived early and chatted excitedly about the intricacies of coffee making, recommending pastries with enthusiasm, and slipping in her personal stories about boyish crushes and tender hand-holding moments she dreamt would one day define her own life. Derek listened with an expression that danced between amusement and disbelief, secretly bracing himself for the inevitable chaos that Sophie's clumsy enthusiasm was sure to bring. He needn't have worried long. From the moment Sophie began her shift, the spills started. Latte foam cascaded down the sides of cups. Cups slipped from her delicate fingers. Steam clouded the front window as she fumbled with the espresso machine controls. Each mishap was followed by an apologetic smile and a quick attempt to make it right, her cheeks flushed and eyes sparkling with playful determination. Despite the chaos, customers responded to Sophie's earnest positivity. Her warmth yanked the cafe's mood from dreary to inviting, and even Derek, who was typically stoic, found himself more tolerant of the delays and messes. The cafe's regulars began to fondly nickname her, "Spill the Latte Sophie," a moniker she wore with pride. Yet, beneath the surface, Derek was battling an internal war. How could someone so obliviously hopeful about love survive in a world he had come to see as bruising and cold? He often caught himself watching Sophie from behind his counter, her laughter ringing out like a bell through the space, while he sipped bitter coffee, wondering if her belief in love was a kind of strength or simply naivete. Sophie, on the other hand, was fascinated by Derek's guarded nature. His sharp remarks and subtle sarcasm weren't just defenses but walls. When she glimpsed a softer moment, an absent smile, a quietly humming song, or the way he smoothed his apron absent-mindedly, she found herself drawn toward him, eager to break through the shadows. One rainy afternoon, as the cafe sloshed with the murmur of rain and the clinking of spoons against mugs, Sophie's latest mishap happened. A rush of customers arrived, and in her haste to get a latte to a mother with a sleepy child, Sophie tripped slightly and the cup wobbled perilously. Before she could steady it, the steaming latte flew across the counter, splattering its rich cream and coffee everywhere. The mother gasped, the small child's eyes widened in surprise, and Sophie was mortified. She turned pale and bit her lip, ready to apologize and clean up, but before she could reach for cloths, Derek was there, taking charge. His calm efficiency doused the brewing embarrassment with quick apologies, replaced the cup, and gently reminded Sophie to take a breath, to slow down, and to trust her instincts. When the crowd settled, Derek spoke quietly. "You've got a lot of heart, Sophie. You don't need to rush, not if you want to do this right." His voice held no condescension but something softer, almost approving. Sophie looked up, meeting his gaze, feeling the warmth behind his words. She smiled, cheeks still flushed, and nodded. "Thanks, Derek. I want to get it right. Maybe even perfect someday." Days turned into weeks, and Sophie's presence became a fixture of the Crimson Bean. Her laughter filled a space that had grown too quiet under Derek's reign of discipline. She was never the fastest barista, never the neatest, but she had dared something else, the courage to dream openly. Derek, begrudgingly, admitted the café was livelier. One evening, after the café had closed, Sophie lingered to perfect her latte art. A heart delicately etched into a creamy swirl, the symbol of her hopeful heart. Derek watched her from the doorway, a piece of advice tangled with something more vulnerable on his tongue. "Do you believe that love arrives perfectly?" he asked, breaking the silence. Sophie laughed softly. "I think it's messy and real, sometimes a bit clumsy, just like my lattes." Derek smiled in a way that seemed both sarcastic and genuine. "Maybe love isn't about perfect moments but about the messy ones where you still choose to stay." Sophie looked up at him, eyes gleaming with a secret hope. "Would you ever choose to stay?" "I don't know," Derek replied, dragging a hand sheepishly through his hair. "Maybe I'm just scared of being foolish enough to try." The tension between them swelled, an unspoken recognition that beneath their different worlds lay a possibility neither had dared approach. Their friendship deepened in that quiet space inside the café. Sophie's earnestness began to chip away at Derek's stubborn heart, revealing a man who longed to believe again, a man who had once loved and lost so profoundly that the safest thing seemed to hold back. Sophie, meanwhile, learned of the painful chapters behind Derek's cynicism. A long relationship broken by betrayal and an ambition that sacrificed softness for survival. But instead of recoiling, she wrapped her warmth around his scars, offering healing not by fixing but by understanding. One chilly evening, the café was empty but for the last flickering candles on the tables and a soft jazz record spinning. Derek closed the register with a sigh and looked at Sophie, who was wiping down the counters, her face flushed in the soft light. "All right," Derek said, stepping closer, his voice low. "I have an idea. How about we test your belief in love, right here, right now? Because if I'm going to take a chance on it again, I need a sign that it's worth the risk." Sophie's heart fluttered like the first flutter of spring wings. "What kind of sign?" He hesitated, searching her eyes, then leaned toward her, tilting his head slightly. "A kiss. Before the coffee's cold." The phrase lingered like the scent of fresh ground beans, rich and inviting. Sophie's breath caught. It was an unexpected turn, a moment suspended between denial and hope. She nodded, barely able to trust the pulse quickening in her chest. Derek's lips brushed hers, a moment soft and tentative, then deepening with the promise of something new. Warmth spread through her like the first sip of a perfect latte, an exquisite mix of bittersweet and creamy joy. When they parted, the silence was filled with a new understanding. No grandeur, no fireworks, just the quiet certainty that maybe, just maybe, love could survive spilled lattes, broken hearts, and the messy in between. From that day forward, the Crimson Bean wasn't just a café serving coffee. It became a place of small miracles, a haven where a cynical manager found his faith restored in the laughter of a hopeless romantic, and where a clumsy barista learned love's messy beauty was the real art to perfect. Every spilled latte from Sophie no longer seemed a mistake but a reminder to Derek that love, like coffee, was best when shared, imperfect, and just a little bit messy. And each day, as the sun rose over the city streets, they found themselves leaning into the warmth of that truth, starting each morning with a kiss before coffee. For more stories, like and subscribe.